없다면 서로 생각 안 했다면 우리가 이리도 질질 끌었을까 이제 마음이 없다면 이 세상 위는 위험해 내 생각보다 말고 alright 반복된 시스템 이제서야 끝을 내보려 해
Hello, and I hope you're having a great day. My name is Wooster 182. Doc has let us invade his podcast channel to uh, have a women's and girlies panel talking about what we're interested in talking about. So we're going to introduce ourselves and then get into it. Again, my name is Wooster. I'm she, her, and I've been watching wrestling since the late 80s when I was born. Took a couple breaks as a kid and then came back to it in 2010 and fell in love with AEW when it started. Um, who wants to introduce themselves next?
Uh, I can go. Um, hey, my name is Denisha, but everybody calls me D. But on different on different discords, screen name is usually Cottonmouth8978, or if I'm on Sosu, I am the resident caster appreciator. Do with that what you will. Um, so my pronouns are she, they, and I've been watching wrestling since, well, initially like the late 80s, but I stopped when I was a teenager. But my partner actually got me back into wrestling around the pandemic, mostly AEW. Then I found out about New Japan, and it's been all gas, no brakes since then.
Yeah, I can go next. Hi, I'm Persephone. Pronouns she, her. Um, as kind of a wrestling fan, it was always kind of on the cusp of what I used to watch. So I did have some exposure to the New Japan stuff as a result of what other stuff I was interested in, which was like, mainly video games. And then kind of, in the past many years, my friends have kind of gone back to watching AEW, which and have kind of dragged me along with it. And now I'm like just as big of a fan as them. So yeah.
And then I'm Shane, pronouns she, her. I started watching wrestling. My first show I think I ever tuned into was All In 2025, which I think was in July? July. And it's very different from anything else I usually read or watch and consume. And my friends are all very much questioning my sanity as I try to convert them into the wrestling cult. And I've
So
only ever seen AEW, by the way.
your first experience into all this was a beautiful cowboy stabbing a beautiful bald man with a fork.
That is
That was
a
your first night.
that's
That
a
was my
hell of a way
first
to get
night.
jumped in. Good God.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea what storylines we're getting in. I had to like double check. I'm like, we're supposed to hate at the time, the EVP Young Bucks, right? Like I was googling it. I'm like, these are the bad guys, right? Right? It was an interesting. I had a big project. I had to clean out my closet, and I wanted something just on in the background. And I was at my parents' house, who are from Dallas, so there was targeted ads and stuff for AEW, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I can have that on in the background. And a year later, I now watch 4 hours of wrestling every week, and I'm going to my first pay per view on next Sunday. So
Oh, nice.
exciting stuff.
Exciting. So I have a theory about this, and this is the perfect audience to talk about it. What about the targeted ads interested you?
Uh, I like everything that the Mountain Goats typically have an album about. Not Christianity, but I like Christian heresy, so like that was fun. So I was already like, oh, maybe this is a thing I should try, and then I thought the people involved were attractive.
Okay, that's what I was looking for because in my opinion, AEW should be going after a larger female audience, and the way to do that is to put the Elite and Mox and Jack Perry on as many ads as possible. Just like put all those pretty men, put Max Caster, put all of those gorgeous men and women, and the girlies will come.
Yeah. Actually, the one thing that New Japan does super, super well, they absolutely cater to like, the girly audience, aka
Mhm.
the housewives. Especially the one thing that AEW would make absolute bank on, picture books. They honestly would.
I can't believe we don't have a Don Callis family commemorative calendar. I mean, there's like 12 of them. Come on. Who doesn't want to see Takeshita as Mr. July? Like, you know.
I am so gonna tell my partner this because he's a huge Don Callis fan. This will absolutely crack him up. And I'm surprised he didn't think of something like that either.
Okay, before we jump further into wrestling, I just wanted to ask everyone what they've consumed this week, non-wrestling, that they've loved, hated, found interesting. Do you want to go first?
Oh, I can go. I can go. Uh, lately, I'm trying to get back into a habit of, just reading parts of a book, if even if I don't finish it immediately. There's a book that I've been reading by Paul Barber called Vampires, Burial, and Death. So it's the idea of talking about, how vampirism is, essentially a thing in media, but not everybody knows, like, the folklore, like backstory of actual, like, historical moments where people believe that, oh no, there's a vampire, and like, given the rationale and stuff like that. Like, I think real quick, there was a story that somebody mentioned that somebody had died in a Serbian village, and evidently after that person died, he evidently came to other people in their dreams, strangled them, and then they immediately, dropped dead. And it's like, okay, yeah, that guy's undead. That's a problem. Let's call the Pope. And yeah, so it's actually talking about things that have been documented by actual clergy. How folklore, he said, she said, gets swept around and all that other stuff. So that's kind of interesting.
That's really interesting. There's a Destination Unknown episode, take that as you will, a few years ago where I think he like goes to Hungary or somewhere over or Romania maybe, and yeah, they dug the guy up and like did vampire rites on him because they thought he was terrorizing the village, and that was just like in the last 10 or 15 years, I think.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up because I already, you know what? I'm gonna stop because I can go like a little bit further with this, because I joke that my specific sort of tism is like wrestling geared, but no, I have room for vampire fixation, so I will I I cede my time.
So I'm gonna go next. I have gotten hooked on the other Bennett sister. The first four, I think the fifth episode comes out tomorrow. It's based on a book, and it's the idea that it focuses on Mary Bennett instead of um, Lizzie Bennett, who is the lead of Pride and Prejudice. So it starts at the beginning of Pride and Prejudice, and then zooms forward and shows you, Mary finally having a life once all of her sisters are married and out of the house, and her trying to find her own voice and who she is outside of her family. And I'm kind of obsessed with it.
I've heard really good things about that one. You know, Mary Bennett's always kind of like a sad figure in the actual book. Like everyone makes fun of her, and she doesn't do anything wrong. She's just boring. Some of us are boring. It's the nature of life. So it's nice to know, at least in one fictional universe, she gets to have a little bit more of her own agency in life.
Yeah, and she's just a middle child trying to get, someone to pay attention to her, and um yeah, it's played for like the lead has got a nice comedic timing, and um it's believable that, someone would see the goodness in her. It's very sweet. So what about you? What are you consuming?
So I just finished the book I was reading. It was So Old, So Young by Grant Ginder. It's a contemporary fiction novel. It's about a group of friends who meet in a party in the Lower East Side in the 20s, and what happens to them up until I think their mid to late 40s. I thought I really loved it. I love a good rotating narrator among a set group of cast and seeing people's different perspectives on events. I thought it was very realistic. It's something that I'm experiencing myself. I'm currently in my late 20s, but people you really love just even though you like each other, your lives are just very different now and you have different priorities and things like kids and spouses and jobs get in the way. I thought the author did a really tender job of a lot of different perspectives where it felt like, the author cared about all of the point of view characters. In general, I really liked it. It was a nice fiction read. I read it. I did a weekend away with some of my friends, like a little day trip. And it's a very sobering moment to look at people in your late 20s who you love and being like, well, what's this next 10 years gonna look like for us?
Oof. Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I'll
that's kind of heavy.
yeah. I'll go next. I've been just finishing up watching Hacks because I think next kind of final episode is like next week. So that's something I've been watching. It's really fun and I really like it. I've been reading. Sorry, I've been reading The Black Company. So I've just been trying to get into fantasy since it's kind of a blind spot for me. And yeah, that, and then I watched a bunch of movies. I watched A Knight's Tale, which I really liked, and then I watched Wuthering Heights, which I didn't. And yeah, that was kind of my week. It's been pretty busy, but it's been a really it's kind of been my process of getting back to it after a pretty busy year.
So, okay, I've got a couple questions because I'm starting to feel like I'm probably one of the oldest people on the call. Um, did you just like miss out on A Knight's Tale when it originally came out, or are you were you too
I
young to have
Yeah,
watched
I
it?
was like I was like one during the time, so it
Oh
never
God.
really.
Oh, oh, my back hurts.
I saw that in the theater with my best friends. We stopped to Queen in the beginning and were completely in love with Heath Ledger. My best friend actually named her child Heath. I'm going to guess is probably in large part due to that movie. Uh, now, as a 40-year-old woman, I'm in love with the bad guy from that show, Rufus Sewell. But that probably says a lot about me and my wrestling tendencies.
You're allowed to change your mind at later points in time.
Okay, so let's talk about Wuthering Heights because I went and saw this in the theater and I was just whelmed. What did you not like about it?
I don't really like Emerald Fennell's stuff.
Mm.
I kind of watch her stuff out of like not like a morbid curiosity. Like I really liked Killing Eve, and then I thought her season of the show basically kind of killed it. So I've always kind of had eternal like beef with her. I just thought it was a whole lot of nothing. I mean, the book is so like there's so much going on in the book. She kind of boils it down to something that it really isn't. I mean, there's a lot of other like problematic things about the movie, but it just all kind of culminates in just a movie kind of falling flat and not
Hmm.
doing anything interesting. It could be distasteful and be interesting, but it isn't really anything. It's just bad.
Has anybody else watched it yet?
Nah, I've literally been warned against it. It's just like, hey, you see that thing over there? Don't look at that thing over there. But I do have to say something kind of funny because it's like I kind of figured you guys were going to at least like touch on it. I was just, scrolling through Pinterest because I'm trying to find like a reference pictures to like sketch from, and I just saw an advertisement. It's like, hey, here's an advertisement for Wuthering Heights now in ASL. I'm like, uh. I appreciate the the diversity in that, but I'm still not watching. Thank you. And I just scrolled on.
I had a similar feeling. Like I liked Promising Young Woman a lot, and I I I wouldn't say I liked Saltburn, but it was an experience, you know. Um, so I was expecting her to take this movie into like a horror, um, and I don't think she did that enough. If she would have pushed it into like a full horror genre, I think it would have been a much more interesting movie. But she didn't she didn't go far enough on anything to actually really say anything. And then so it just felt very plastic for something that was supposed to be a romantic epic. I just didn't feel anything.
I loved Saltburn. I saw it in an empty theater with it was me and my older brother, and neither of us knew anything about the movie.
You watched that bathtub scene with your brother?
I did. And I watched the dicks out scene at the end. And again, we were the only people in the entire movie theater.
Oh, wow.
I had the day off from work. He had a dentist appointment, so he had the rest of the day off. We were like, yeah, well, let's go see it. I was like, oh yeah, one of my friends said they like this movie. That was the warning I had for Saltburn. But honestly, what an experience! What a way to watch a movie. Honestly, I think I haven't seen Wuthering Heights, but I have seen that and Promising Young Woman. I do think Promising Young Woman would be better if she killed some people.
Yeah.
I feel like Emerald Fennell has an incredible visual eye, and I think she has good instincts as a director somewhere, but I don't know if she has a writerly mind. And necessarily, I think she would really benefit from a collaborator. I'll say that.
It was a beautiful film. It like the coloring in it was beautiful. And the Guardian, so Kathy's stepdaughter, all of there's some ejaculation jokes in it that are hilarious, but you have to really look for it. Like she's needle pointing quietly to herself, and if you're not paying attention, like they don't focus on it at all. But if you look at her needle point, it's a flower that looks like an ejaculating penis. That's my favorite part in the whole film.
Pulled a reverse Georgia O'Keeffe. Amazing.
Yeah. Okay, if we're ready, we so the plan for this show is to do like bottle episodes where we kind of analyze and talk about one meaty topic that we're interested in. This week it is about um, being a fangirl, being interested in character development and what that looks like, and how it engrosses your fandom. So, first question is what would you describe yourself as a girly? And either way, how would you define that?
I feel like the Gen Z among us might. Maybe we should take the first crack on it. I do call myself a girly. I will say I call every single person in the world, including my father, a girly
Yes.
sometimes. I love girly. To me, it is a the it's I would put it as equivalent of guy. It's not really gender neutral. It's a very inherently gendered term, but it is used in such a way that it becomes just like it's like some guy, but female coded. Um, but when I think of someone like having it as a definitional term, I would put it in the same realm as saying someone's like, oh, he's just a guy, or he's some guy, or he's the guy. And similarly, I think to be a girly, some girly, something like that, is someone with a certain joie de vivre, enthusiasm, zeal, a passion, um, someone who has a sense and is going for it, is what I would say.
You know what? I actually like that definition a lot. Uh, because it's one of those things is like, okay, I would just kind of just call myself a girly. Um, because my definition it's kind of sort of like that, but like I said, I openly admit I haven't got given too much of a thought, besides like a surface level. It's like, okay, I'm just, a girly, one of the girls in the sense of like, oh, okay, well, there are, gender neutral girlies, which means everyone is okay under the gender neutral girly umbrella. Unless you're an asshole, then you don't belong. So, so it's just the idea of the idea of calling somebody a girly is like, okay, you're cool. I feel kind of, I feel pretty safe with you. We kind of, we vibe on like certain things. Don't have to agree all the time, but you're cool. And sometimes like if I end up gossiping with like some of my guy friends and we just hit on some and I just say girl, I don't even stop. They just look and they just they kind of just play into it. We just keep going. So yeah, it's pretty much like to me calling somebody a girly is kind of like how for like most of the 90s, everybody was dude. So
Persephone, are you a girly?
Yeah, I would just say I think I would consider it um like an aesthetical thing. Cause like, when I'm talking to my friends, we're using girly, like it's usually yeah, like a type of guy, but like something girly, So to me it's always just like, a way to get that across.
Yeah, I view myself that as well. I like the idea that maybe it's taken over from, the hyper masculine dude, which I'll be honest, I've used a lot. But I use it in terms of kind of a gender neutral form of fandom in the idea of I guess it's almost a feminizing of the gender neutral. And what I mean by that is if you're a girly of something, like I asked a male coworker the other day if he was a Stranger Things girly, right? Like, are you passionate? Do you have an emotional connection beyond just enjoying what you're consuming? Is there an emotional connection to what you're watching? Are you more of an Uber fan? To me, that's a girly, um, in terms of framing it around fandom.
I think that's probably true. I mean, if someone told me that they were like a NASCAR guy or an F1 guy, like, that would have meaning and resonance to me.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Okay, so in those terms that we've all defined, has being a fangirl affected the way you watch wrestling?
yes. Yes, it has. Um, because I've joked with my partner about this because he was the one that got me back into wrestling and everything. And I told him it's like once I got attached to like certain people, I looked at him as like I hope you know that I'm going to be, yapping to you and at you about wrestling and I want you to know specifically it's going to be your fault and he accepted that. So God love him for it. But yeah, being a fan of wrestling, it actually like now that I'm watching it, as being older, it makes me appreciate a lot more than when I did as a kid. Because when I was a kid, everything was just like surface level enjoyment. Just like watching the manias with my cousins, Survivor Series. For me, it was just match. I did not know like certain storylines unless stuff was just like so overt you couldn't get away from it. Like the whole Undertaker Kane finding out that they were brothers storyline. What that's one of the first things I thought of. But now that I'm older, I can actually pick up on like general subtleties like in storytelling, like in the ring with promos and stuff like that. So I have honestly had moments with certain stories that I probably do look like that one "It's Always Sunny" gif of Charlie chain smoking and with the red threads going everywhere on that wall. So I have had those moments, but sometimes those are like the best moments, and you do that with the right people. Hey, it's worth it.
Well, so that leads kind of to my next question, and anybody please feel free to jump in. When I was thinking about this the other day, especially with who has been AEW champions in the last year. When I was a kid, if say Darby had been around when I was a kid, I would not think twice, or MJF, I would not think twice about whether they need character development or growth or a story arc. Would not have crossed my mind. But after watching as an adult and interacting with, a lot of great content like Waffly Bollocks or Tunnel Talk or you ladies, on Blue Sky, and really diving into the meat of the details of what um, Tony Storm or Eddie Kingston or Hangman do with their storylines, just just being a caricature that does the same thing every week is not enough for me. So, I mean, do you think your consumption or interaction outside of the actual product affects how you view that product?
I mean, I think there's something to say about the lens in which you're going in and approaching wrestling from. So, as observant or unobservant listeners might have figured out, I'm somewhat pretentious. I consume a lot of pretentious media, which is very hyper analytically, subtle indicators, all that. I've also like watched. I think I first watched Naruto when I was like 5 or 6, like as a kid, and fell in love with it. I've been up to date on One Piece since I was 8. And I definitely approach wrestling with kind of that same shonen mindset where it's like, this is aimed at 12-year-old boys and you've got to meet the art where it is sometimes. That all being said, just because art is simple doesn't mean it can't be good or well executed and meaningful. And I think at the end of the day, almost every story is kind of propelled by change. Like narratives run on change. Things have to change to the status quo, to the characters, and all that. I will say that I feel like Darby's storyline of he's getting worn down physically and psychologically probably does it enough for me. And I hate to say this because I know there's so much context I'm missing because I haven't watched pre 2025 AEW halfway through. I know I'm missing a lot. I know. But I don't necessarily know if I saw less change in MJF's character than Hangman's title run. Not to blaspheme to the
No, that's
Hangman
a good point.
Well,
girlies here.
good news. There hasn't been any. The good thing, well, that bad thing is like considering like how you came in is like with MJF, it to me is like what you see is what you get, and sometimes that's not always like the best thing, because it's almost like you can get his character down by rote. It's like he comes in and so insults the audience, gets on the mic, blah blah blah. I have been treated unfairly, blah blah blah. Give me my belt that I have won fairly. Spoiler alert: he has never done anything fairly a day in his life. Sometimes he actually wins clean matches, but few and far between. But yeah, you can literally just kind of pick up MJF and put him down, and if he was like a piece on a board, like one of those like electric football things, like he would not move. That's the best way to put it. He is stuck within a hole that he dug himself in, and we try to say, "Hey, dig up, stupid," and nothing happens.
But to that point, and maybe I'm veering off of what our original thought was, but I think that's okay. Steer me back if it's not. I think I think there's a real big misconception of why Hangman girlies are upset. And I can't speak for every one of them, but I'll tell you why I'm largely upset. Um, we have seen a giant story arc with him for the last 6 years. And the first 4 or 5 of that has been extremely interesting. But if you look at it if you look at them as separate, they're three separate storylines, right? It's Hangman and Omega, then Hangman and Swerve, and now Hangman and um where does he go from here, right? Or Hangman and Mox was maybe the third one. If you look at those as individual storylines, there's a lot of growth and interesting things there that I think has really driven the show as a whole, especially when it was struggling outside of that storyline. But if you look at it as a whole, 6 years, they go to that well of, oh, he chokes when um he gets to the top, or he's unsure of himself, he has no friends. It's becoming the same storyline every time, and it feels like they don't they know that, I don't know if it's that they know that we will eat it up and buy a pay-per-view for it. Because I'll be really honest, I bought his last pay-per-view just to see what happened with that damn Cody stip. That's the only reason I bought that pay-per-view. And that's the first time I've ever felt that way because I have watched every pay-per-view up until the last couple in 6 years. But like I am tired of holding up the faith of his character for the same like resolution every time. And then once he gets that resolution, it falling right back to square one. And I don't know if it's a laziness or bad faith or lack of interest in the character. From someone outside of Hangman. I don't know. And to me, it's become super frustrating. Did any of that make sense?
No, it actually made like a good amount of sense because that's the thing. It's like when you're mentioning it's like general like hangman girlies, it's like we tend to be very very vehement about his character because I think for a good amount of people his story in AEW has been like one of the most engaging ones, and people tend to lock in on things that they are super engaged with. And there's only we were really wondering, it's like, okay, well, what was he going to do after Mox? Like, okay, he's going to get set up for a good reign, and then it just inherently fell flat. It's just like, okay, maybe a couple challengers, but like nothing to actually show off how good he is, story wise. His in-ring work is like, it's without question, without issue. But where he excels is like when the two kind of come together. And well, with the whole thing with Max, it's like, oh yeah, we're alike. I'm like, dude, no. Yeah, okay, Hangman is sneaky. Yes, he has proven that when he snuck Swerve. That was great. But it's just, dude, I get the fact that you want to be the type of person that it's like, oh, plagued with self-doubt. It's like, okay, I also have what what one considers anxiety. I have imposter syndrome. There are other ways to hopefully get that across without it seeming like you're just like yo will I, won't I. It's just I, it is frustrating. And what I find even more frustrating about it is like when we actually voice our concerns about it, it's like, oh, you're thinking too much. Like, no, there's you can be critical of the media that you can consume. You can like what you like what you like, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't nitpick about things that can be better.
I mean, ultimately, people tend to criticize things that they have an emotional engagement with. So asking people not to be critical of things is basically telling people that they shouldn't have an emotional attachment to things. And I can't think of anything worse as a creator than to have an apathetic audience that isn't caring and isn't thinking about what you're putting out in front of them.
Well, and that's a good point. And I think that's where there's a divide in one, the tone of the show itself, and two, in the fandoms that watch. Because I do think that there is a large fan base of wrestling fans that watch AEW that are just there for the excellent wrestling. And they don't they don't need to see someone like Will Ospreay have a storyline. They don't need to see Bryan Danielson have a storyline. They just want to see those two wrestle, right? And a money match is a good enough reason to watch them wrestle, right? That's and then there's another subset of fans that I think are tend to be more the girlies that have seen that, yeah, this company is capable of doing more than that and put on really interesting storylines like Tony Storm has done over the last 3 years and say, do more of that. That's what we're interested in. That's what's going to make us buy t-shirts. Like, do not ask me how many Tony Storm and Hangman t-shirts I have because it's embarrassing. Because they made me feel an emotional connection, right? And now that I know that they're capable of that, I I don't want to see a money match every week.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, you know, we watch wrestling for like a multitude of reasons, but it's also the fact that, variety is an actual thing. And it kind of feels like sometimes, people are actually scared to put forth things. It's like, hey, this actually might be more narrative driven, there might not be as much action. It's like, no, 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 do not insult your fan base like that. It's like with some of the bigger like narrative driven things, like with Hangman and Swerve, it's like the a good amount of people like ran with that. Like, I think we're probably going to end up touching on this, but I'm going to touch on this real quick. But the was it the Full Gear Hangman and Swerve Texas Death Match? That literally kicked off a creative renaissance for so many fans. So yeah, that was a sign that became media that a good amount of us got attached to. And then when you see something like that resonate with the fan base, it's like, oh, that should let you know. It's like, okay, people are picking up what we're putting down. Let's see what we can work with in that sense.
To add on to that, it makes me think of when Jack Perry said, he's not wrestling for people on Twitter, he's wrestling for the girlies on Tumblr. And that really clicked for me. And you can tell, you can almost tell the wrestlers that are, right? I think we can make a very quick list of the wrestlers that are wrestling for that fan base. And I do think there are fans that kind of sneer their nose at those wrestlers and sneer their nose at the fans that gravitate towards those wrestlers. Um, but it all goes back to emotional connection, right? And what you're able to create out of that emotional connection.
Yeah, that honestly makes like it does make a lot of sense and everything. It's just, it really does feel like, the more success that you have in certain things, how can you be risk averse to something that people have immediately like gravitated towards, like when you mentioned Jack Perry, doing the saying that he's like wrestling like for the girlies on Tumblr. It's like you can definitely, like you said, pick out certain wrestlers that literally pick out what fans say. And yeah, I mean, personally, there are some things that I've said about things that Swerve has done. He's actually incorporated it into some of the things that he's done. Like when he brought back, was it when he brought back the chain for Samoa Joe on was it their first meeting at the first before Dynasty? Because I remember I drew a picture of him about like a couple days before that with the chain, and I remember him sharing that. It's like, oh, hey, cool, whatever. And then the day that he came on the Dynamite with that chain, right after the segment, I was joking. It's like, haha, yeah, whatever. That's for me. I was joking. Then he actually quote tweeted my picture with that segment. It's like, oh, okay, he does listen. Him, Hangman, and some other wrestlers actually do listen to what we do. So yeah, it's pretty much like a feedback loop. They give us they give us like great performances. The creative folks give us give as good as we can get right back. So it's a symbiotic relationship, but if you don't give us anything, you know, you kind of end up expecting nothing.
I'm just gonna. I agree with you mostly, but I'm gonna push back on one thing though. Is that I do feel like certain media uh play too much into what fan bases want, and I think some fans are dumb. I think all people of all kinds are dumb, but I'm thinking specifically, and not you. I'm just thinking of like Star Wars, where they have
Oh
this whole
God,
thing about higher fans, and then if you
no!
look at what the fans want, you're like, these people have garbage taste. Do not cater to them.
Oh no, believe me, it's like
Uh,
I'm not saying that's like, all of us are the best. Like, no, I have seen some fans. It's like, you know what, just please sequester yourself in your own corner of the internet, and just stay there. And it's like, have you read had read the book of the little poem about Amontillado? No? Okay, cool. I'm gonna brick you up in a wall. You stay over there. I don't want to deal with you.
But I mean, you can see a clear line of that in AEW in that, MJ on Waffly Bollocks has made the I don't know how to say it, but like she feels like Tony Khan listens more to the dudes on Twitter when the real fan base that cares about the show and has maybe good constructive feedback is on Blue Sky, right? And
Yeah.
and the people that would reinvest in the show are there, but he's listening to the guys that keep chattering on about casual fans, right? So I definitely think there's um assuming that she's correct, and I tend to agree with her. um there is a line there of which part of the fan base are you listening to and how is that affecting the product.
Yeah, that's definitely like a really good point and everything because yeah, you can literally tell like how much stock TK actually takes with his fans because oh, a better example was God, this is kind of dipping back a bit, but do you guys remember when Mina ended up actually coming out to different music once? And
Yes.
yeah, and the absolute like outcry there was on Twitter about it. And then like the next time she came out, it was like, her music and everything. It's like, all right, man, it's like you do realize you have to take like some type of chances. I get that, but it's like you can't be at the beck and call of people who have no idea what cleaning under their fingernails looks like.
But on the flip side of that, when Brody died, a lot of fans, including myself when I was still on Twitter, asked for the commentary team um to say it's Wednesday and you know what that means. And they did. And they've done it ever since. And that's a nice way to incorporate fan feedback. Um you just got to know which ones to pick and choose. So, Jane, since you're the newbie of the group, um what have you enjoyed in this last year watching wrestling? What keeps you coming back? What are you attracted to?
that's a great question. I mean, I think in a soap opera kind of sense, I just kind of want to see what happens. Not even because I think the storylines are good, just because I'm like, well, what? Anything can happen in wrestling. I mean, people who are in the Social Suplex Discord have known that I've complained quite a bit about John Moxley's storyline and how it makes no sense from any possible angle that I look at. And now he's the Will Sensei, even though he broke his neck after a lights out. Like, the match was over. Like, he didn't do it to win the match. He just kind of did it, and he's never apologized. And now he's teaching him. It's like, well, if that can happen, anything can happen. Like, just on a week-to-week basis. Like, what will happen next? I think what keeps me most engaged, though, is that I can clearly tell that, like, wrestlers, even though some of them have god awful taste, it reminds me of watching Dungeons and Dragons live plays. Like, I just love watching adults play make believe, as someone who's played a lot of make believe in her life. And I love seeing adults feel passionate about their make believe and the make believe characters they've created. So that's kind of me on my end.
That's really beautiful. That's what keeps me coming back in large part too. Like I stopped watching until 2010, and that's when I really got into the workforce because I graduated in 2009. And it made me feel 5 years old again, and was a major stress relief. And yeah, it was just fun to watch pretty idiots roll around and have storylines.
Roland Barthes has a great essay about the post-structuralist view of professional wrestling, and he has this whole thing where it's like wrestling is all spectacle, no substance. It's ancient Greek theater for the catharsis of the masses, and there is some truth to that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, see, now I want to read that. I mean, there's probably things I can easily, like, slightly pick apart, but on the whole, I actually do want to read that.
It's a really great essay. I do recommend that one.
Okay, cool.
Persephone, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, no, I was agreeing. I was just also gonna say, like, um, kind of on top of like the catharsis is that, as a lot of like TV and movies, the time between stuff gets further and further apart. I'm thinking about like shows that take years to film. Like, I feel like wrestling is probably one of the fan bases that are most like engaged since, it is like a weekly product no matter what. And yeah, I'm just very appreciative to have that, but I think it also comes with stuff gets old really, really fast. And that is definitely a thing I feel with wrestling a lot of the time. And I'm talking about the Death Riders.
How has there been no change? It's crazy. It's crazy every time I think about that. Wild. Wild. But the serial nature of wrestling is like one of the unique things I think about wrestling as compared to a TV show. There is a sense that anything can happen from week to week.
So let's talk about that for a second because, you know, the main topic of our discussion is character development. And in the last year and a half, we've seen, especially John Moxley, because I think the rest of his career are basically still heels. But when he turned from babyface to heel, and then heel back to babyface, in my opinion, um, he never really changed what he was saying. I
Mhm.
mean, if you look at the thread of his promos, it's always, I believe in this company. I'm the ace. I'm here to make everybody better. I want people to be better. I want you to take this from me. Whether he's a heel or face. Now, he's changed. So you would assume that that's character development because, he's literally developed into a baby face or developed into a heel. But what he's saying never really changed.
Thank you. That's
And
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, you go.
Okay. No, because like you saying that, it's like it makes me feel like I'm not crazy. Because like when he was, like when Death Riders were just like, straight up heel and everything, their it feels to me like their raison d'etre was to pretty much beat the garbage out of everyone. It's like, okay, you're coasting, your ego's getting in the way. It's like we are going to beat the snot out of you to, for you to realize your potential. And then it got murky. I'm thinking it's like, definitely injuries, all that other stuff. But then when John won the C2, and even before that, it was looking like Claudio was about to just knock that man's head off and assume control. Which yes, I was hoping for that. That's classic Greek tragedy stuff. But then when he won the C2, it's like, so what? We're circling back to Blackpool Combat Club Light. Like John has had nothing in the way of comeuppance. He literally just he got what he wanted, but like at a lower scale and a lower risk. It's like Hangman beating the garbage out of him was not his reckoning. It should have been, but it wasn't. So he's just literally, he's speaking in riddles and just he's being himself with like zero consequence attached to it. And this is coming from somebody that loves Mox. It's like, dude, come on, like other bald man, do something.
And to build off of that, and this is what I was gonna say earlier, so I'm glad you went first so we could build off of this, is that his relationship to the other characters haven't really changed. I mean, if you look at who he interacts with most, you know, Yuda's still the young boy who gets bullied, and Marina and Claudio are the loyal guard dogs. And he's still friends with the dogs, like from based on what we've heard in commentary. You would think that his opinions, whether or not cheating is okay, whether or not running in from consequences is okay, all of that, you think some of that would affect his relationships with other people, and it hasn't. And that's disappointing, because if there is no change, there is no narrative.
Yeah, pretty much. Because one of the main things that frustrated me about that is like, oh, he's friends with the dogs. Like, okay, all right. Main thing is John Moxley famously, and I mean famously, hates Bullet Club. David Finlay was one of the leaders of Bullet Club. It's like, bro, why are you on good terms with him? Why did you let the other bald Brit in there? Like, I thought you're supposed to hate these people, but it's like, you know what? Okay, down is up, left is right. Sure, why not? Let's see what happens.
And I guess there's no way to know this until, 15 years from now when they do the Dark Side of the Ring episode about AEW. But, and Jane, this is a little before your time, and be very grateful that it was. But I think that ever since the, the brawl out incident, a lot of the top guys have gotten very protective of themselves, and there's more of an attitude of that doesn't work for me, brother. And logically, if I think about behind the scenes, if I were Pac and Claudio, and I mean Mox would be fine without them, but like they are more marquee together than they are separate, right? If they separated, then they would fall farther down the card, right? And so I think my assumption is that there's certain people that have decided after that incident and the couple years that came after that to protect themselves, and they're not going to kill themselves for a company that did not protect them, which absolutely agree with. I've experienced that myself. Um, and I think I think they decided, damn the development. We're gonna stay together because we want to. We're friends. It protects us for staying together. And if that's the case, like I think it's harmed the storyline potential in a lot of storylines.
I agree, but I also think there's ways that they could show change in relationships without necessarily disbanding the group. Like, this is an idea I'm stealing from Nejima on the Social Suplex Discord, but like, yeah, Mox is a crisis of faith after tapping out twice, and the other Death Riders stage a intervention. And instead of killing him, they train him. Or, there's ways that they could stay together as a group and even keep John Moxley as the leader. But the relationships, the positioning, all that needs to change. Marina Guns to add another woman to the group. Just, you know, Daniel Garcia's relationship with the groups as the newest members are explored. There's ways to do change and upheaval without necessarily shaking it up too bad. But it feels like it's one of those things where if it's not broke, don't fix it, which is not necessarily the best attitude as an audience member consuming product.
That's an excellent point. I've noticed, especially this past year, like I I've taken a break. I had no interest in watching MJF be champion. Um, when I was gonna come back after he lost, but when Darby won it, I'll be honest, that did not entice me to come back. Um, so I've taken a break since MJF has won it. But prior, if if oh god, what's his name? If Kyle Fletcher had been the one to beat Hangman at that pay-per-view instead of MJF, I would absolutely be watching now and I would have been seated for that because it would be something interesting. It would have been like I think it would have been a nice finish to his character development. I realized that he's, not proven behind the scenes, is he a draw, blah blah blah. I literally could not care less about that shit. To me, that would have been interesting, and I think he was ready for it. And so my point in all that is I get really frustrated with the company because every time it feels like a lot of times when they have the opportunity to push themselves in like to that next level and somewhere interesting, they panic and go back to like the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, I definitely believe you're right though, and especially when uh like certain things happen in already established storylines, like if injuries happen, the one of many things that frustrates me about AEW is like they haven't learned how to pivot
Yeah.
at all. Because I had a feeling that at least with part of the Death Rider storyline, uh, Jay White probably had a good amount to do with it, and the way they treated him as pretty much the young boy to like freaking cope. I'm like, come on, really? All right. And saying that Mox didn't want to face him, it's like, it's just again between like a whole bunch of injuries or other things that have happened. It's like you should be able to at least have something in the way of a contingency plan, because trying to plan out a story as like nothing will ever happen or nothing will ever change, that's literally setting you up for some of like the weird like story choices that have happened.
Sorry if you can hear my dog with heart failure. So let's talk about that since you're the caster girly. Um, a big controversy this year was apparently people decided that the caster um Anthony Bowen storyline sucked and they just let it die on an indie show that wasn't even part of AEW.
And
How do you feel about that?
well, I'm sorry, those people have absolutely nothing in the way of taste, because the concept of a found divorce with those guys was honestly great, because it's like they it took them a while to even set up like the whole separation thing, because of how Max has his whole ego set up. It's like, oh, I'm the greatest, you guys are dead weight, blah blah blah, which was working. It was honestly working. But then when the whole thing of them trying to be pushed back together with TK doing counseling, aka making them do like trust exercises and all that other stuff, that was honestly great, because you actually got to see more character work out of Bowens. Because as much as I love Caster, it's like Bowens actually does need like more opportunities to actually do character growth. Because for the longest time, like with the Acclaimed, it was always Castor on the mic because Bowens wasn't all that strong. But over time and given time, Bowens has improved. And honestly, it's like they're back and forth. They play off of each other so well. But unfortunately, with people say, "Oh, I didn't like this. I didn't like this," like, but it's also the fact that AEW didn't even show like some of the good bits on TV. They just like showed it on social media. It's like, you know what, that partially killed it too. But to have something that could have had a better build and something in the way of actual reconciliation that people wouldn't have to hunt down on an indie show, that would have been better, instead of just letting it like twist off in the wind, and all of a sudden, And Anthony is all about violence, which don't get me wrong, dude is a solid striker, given enough time, but it's like, dude, they both deserved better than how the fandom said, their work stinks.
It's so terrible that they made one of the great comedy videos of all time. In the I'm thinking of the New York one where they go around New York and the Max Caster gay I'm not gay bit. That was so good. Why did they not put that on TV? Like cowards.
Right,
Like
because
it
that's
was so good.
no, it was literally perfect because like even again, it shows Anthony is hilarious if you just give him a chance because was it when they were sitting together in the cab and everything and Bowman's flat out said it's like you know what it's like Max's breath smells like ass and I realized like that's rich coming from me and he cracked a gay joke on himself. Let that man cook.
I think that Bowens has a very like dry sense of humor almost. He's the straight man to Castor's goof. And it's really unfortunate that instead of showcasing that, it seems like I do think in general that perhaps TK books for the wrestlers and the wrestling plot lines he wants, not necessarily the wrestlers and the plot lines that he has. And if they focused on highlighting strengths instead of hiding weaknesses, I think that it would be a better show.
Right, because the fact that Castor isn't doing anything while Bowens is going off and having a singles thing, which yes, they both of them are actually strong singles wrestlers when showcased correctly, which was why I was hoping Castor would still be doing like his 5 minute matches, but actually like locking in, to be kind of like a mirror to what Bowens is doing, but you know, I don't have the book and evidently fans, well, at least the smart fans, clearly don't know any better, but I digress.
I mean, the pop when Max Caster eventually won one of his 5 minute open challenges would be incredible. And the fact that they just did nothing after he got his insane fucking chant over is crazy.
Right, the fact that he repurposed Chuck Taylor's old chant and people caught on, and you could see the absolute joy on his face when people were actually able to keep up the cadence, and he had to like lie and say, "No, no, you guys are doing it wrong." It's like I love the fact that the fans were all pretty much able to make him corpse every single time, which shows like that you can't teach that kind of connection. You can't. And to just let that fall off, yeah, that's criminal behavior.
Well, and he had two storylines killed because they killed his development in, the Can You Survive storyline in order to put him back with Bowens. And it's like, okay, I really enjoyed that Bowens storyline, so I was willing to let that go, even though I really, really loved that storyline as well. And then that didn't go anywhere either. So he basically had two fantastic storylines die for no reason. And for me, those were my two of my favorite storylines of that year.
Right. To just let that go, like, oh whoopsie, no, no whoopsie. Because if you're actually like being logical about it, the one thing that could have brought them together was the one thing that they agreed on was how Billy Gunn was kind of clout profiteering off of them both. And that would have been a good way to bring them together. It's like, hey, we have a joint problem. Okay, we take care of it. I don't want to ever talk to you again. You seem cool. That would have worked. But just letting it fall by the wayside for whatever reason, and to have that that continue on a random indie show, which absolutely nothing against that show. It was honestly a great watch, but it's like we shouldn't have to like hunt around for an ending for something. And online, Bowen shouldn't have to say that Max Caster is not coming. Was it somebody had mentioned a rumor? And they said, "Hey, is Max coming back? I heard he's done with AEW." It's like Bowen shouldn't have to say, "Yeah, I don't know where you guys are getting that from. Max is still with the company." Like that, all of that is weird. Do people not see that's not weird?
Yeah, I just feel like it's gotten better while guys like Cope were out, but what what I fell in love with at AEW were all the young weird characters. I loved that there was a dinosaur and who was with a Tarzan boy, right? Like I loved that they had a cult. I loved all of those weird, stupid characters, and it feels like they just don't get valued enough in 2026 for me. Like, invest in those stupid little storylines more, and I would probably still be watching.
I will say I do get all that, but man, the last Derby title defenses have ruled, in my opinion.
You know what? I will give him that because to see the world title actually defended like regularly, and that's a complete contrast to how like Max usually runs his title defenses. Like Darby has been giving like amazing match after amazing match after amazing match because the one he had with Takeshita, man, both of them have a high disregard for their lives, and that worries me. But God, that match was great.
I just personally can't watch him do that to himself anymore. Like it stresses me out too much. I am super happy for you that you've enjoyed it. I am happy for the people that really enjoyed it. I just can't watch his wrestling style anymore.
Not, and that I completely understand. So,
Okay, and so on to that. We I was going to ask how satisfied are you with current storylines. I think we've kind of veered into that. So, how are you feeling about what feels like the ultimate conclusion of the Darby, Hangman, Swerve, MJF of it all, and how would you like those storylines to wrap up? Persephone?
I need MJF out of my company. Um, no, I mean with MJF, it's like I can kind of see it ending soon-ish. I know there's like a pretty hard stop with All In because it's obvious he's not gonna leave that like pay-per-view as champion. But in terms of it all, I like Hangman. I thought kind of the end point of it was super disappointing. We had kind of spent an entire year building him back up just for him to kind of disappear. And I'm talking about specifically kind of how he was dealt with the pay-per-views like after he lost and kind of, even during his reign. So I'm kind of interested to see where we go now that he has that stip. If it's a return to heel, I'd be super excited for that because I thought his first heel run had a lot left wanting. I thought it was really good, but there was so much stuff that we didn't get with that. Um, in terms of Swerve, I just he seems pretty lost, and I think I'm just waiting for him to get the ball, and then yeah, Darby, he's just gonna die, and I'm gonna watch that, and that's just gonna be him. He dies, and then he comes back, just like the Crow.
we don't have a necromancer at AEW anymore, and I guess that's a problem.
Yeah.
No, I think explicitly, possibly Jack Perry can bring back the dead because he brought back Luchasaurus.
That's
Oh,
true.
yeah. Oh, yeah. He pretty much is AEW's answer to Herbert West. Forgot about that.
So, in terms of Hangman and Swerve, like my favorite aspect of last year was their psychosexual, like being able to be in lockstep with each other without looking at each other, twinsing the chains, whatever the hell was going on there. They need to bring that back when he comes back. I have been saying for a year that I would love to see them, do a natural born killers uh, gimmick. And I do mean Juliette Lewis and, and Woody Harrelson. Um, that for me would be super interesting.
Actually,
I thought, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, 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 no. I'm just building off of like what you said. Is like I absolutely love the idea of that because I remember that one particular promo where was it when Hangman and Swerve literally cornered MJF in the ring, and Swerve read MJF the Riot Active. How many people have been left off worse because of him? He mentioned Jay White, which God bless him for that, because my boy it gets done so dirty. But he did mention that no matter what he does, everybody that ends up across from him ends up better, and Hangman agreed to that. So but here's the thing: it's like with Swerve, it's like better could mean a lot of different things. For Hangman, his better could be worse, and Swerve is all for making people worse. So yeah, I would like them to at least like maybe explore that like in the mid card, and yeah, I mean if he's gonna follow that step, sure, okay. Have him be like the most irredeemable person ever. Hell, have him tap into Hangman, like Bullet Club Hangman, the one that hung Chris Sabin over the top rope. That's how he got his name. Give me that Hangman. Plus whatever Swerve did to him. Put that together, yes, I'm all here for that.
In a just world, which we don't live in, but MJF really should get his hair shaven. It would be the natural conclusion. And then Darby loses his title to, Omega or Swerve later on. But that's not gonna happen.
No.
Uh, but it should. I really am sad that they seem to have dropped the Swerve Kevin Knight thing. I really loved the Swerve Kevin Knight thing. I thought that was fun.
I think it's still there. I mean, Swerve has actually been cheering on Kevin for like his victories and stuff like that, and you have seen like Kevin is getting like a bit too egotistical. So yeah, I have a feeling Kevin might turn, or if you want to be interesting, well actually I have no idea how Speedball would be as a heel, but I've heard Speedball go off on somebody for during Mystery Wrestling. The seeds of that are there. Speedball can be an absolute terror if you give them a second, but I don't see them going heel. Kevin, yes, very yes, and I kind of need those two together, just being irredeemable because Kev has it in him.
Okay, so I think we're about to wrap up. I don't think I introduced the name of the group when we started. So we are the commentary booth. This has been our first official episode for Doc on his channel. And before we leave, we have a question from the men.
Man.
Cancelled.
Oh, hey guys. So, you guys, I am so honored to have all four of you here on the commentary booth. This is going to be the actual name of it. You guys are the core four. I wanted to let you guys know that because I absolutely love all 1 hour and 11 minutes of the women only time. My one question for you guys is, we're entering into the summer, and do you guys have any summer cocktails that you imbibe in during the summer? Like, how do you guys cool off during this hot time of the year? I'm gonna hang up and listen.
Huh. Oh, I can do this one. At least for me, cucumber lemonade with vodka in it. It's honestly really, really good. I know like the whole idea of like, something vegetal with that. It's like, no. Cucumber lemonade is very good. You just have to make it a point to peel the skin off, because the skin will actually make the drink a little, a bit bitter, and not in a good contrast way, more like a why did you do this kind of way. So I would recommend that, and the cucumber lemonade tastes great, minus the booze too.
My summer cocktail.
Oh, you can go ahead.
My summer cocktail is switching from room temperature red wine to chillable red wine.
I gotta go just with the classic mojito. It's just perfect for that temperature.
I'm a mojito girly, to bring it back around. I'm with you.
I love a good frozen marg too, but alas, it's so hard to find a good frozen margarita on the island of Manhattan. I have no idea why it's so hard. It should be easy. But if there's one thing Dallas has over New York, it's the quality of our frozen alcoholic drinks.
You know what? Yeah, I'm not gonna argue that. I mean, there are points to be said about like, certain food items, but I'm not here for a Donnybrook of any sorts, but yeah, I will agree with you there.
All right, before we wrap up, does anyone want to tell the audience where they can find you?
Don't find me, please.
No perception, please. No, I can do mine real quick. I have an online business card where I have a Ko-fi, I have an online store, and I also do some writing. What type of writing? You're gonna have to look it up and find out. The online business card is Denisha Artist at card.co, and that's DANESHARTIS.CARRD.co.
I have a YouTube channel called Cagney Chick 182. Cagney like Jimmy Cagney, because I'm also an old movie nerd. Got a little bit of everything on there, and then you can find me on Blue Sky under Wooster 182.
Yeah, you can find me on basically most social media under OnlineCanGF, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky. And yeah, you can also find me on Comic Fury, which I will probably be adding to very soon, because I am beginning a new project, so yeah.
And with that, we have been the commentary booth for the Prescription Podcast. Thanks and have a good night.